Today, my topic of presentation is memory and space, an exploration of contemporary partition narratives. The most beautiful things in life are not things, they are people and places and memories and pictures. They are feelings and moments and smiles and laughs. This said by someone. So, this particular quote is very appropriate regarding memory studies because memories, so they come and go. Certain things we remember, certain things we forget, certain things we want to forget. How these things can work in the realm of literary studies. So that is the focus of this particular presentation. The outline of my presentation is, so first I'll be define memory and space. Then I'll introduce major theorists. Then memory as a liminal space. Then some similarities in partition narratives. Then with a special focus on Indian partition narratives. Finally, it will be a summation. First, let me fix memory and space. What is memory? Memory is the past made present. So it is not just the past. So memories can be evoked, created, erased, deliberately forgotten, lost, destroyed, broken, returned, and reconstructed. So if we go by this particular definition, so memory can be evoked. So we can create our own memory. So if we want to erase our certain things, just we can do that. So sometimes we deliberately want to forget some bad things. But the irony is, the more we want to forget, so naturally that surfaces repeatedly. Some memories are lost without our knowledge. Some are destroyed by the institutions like government, and some are broken, and some memories written, and certain memories can be reconstructed if we are powerful. Then the memory works at three levels. First, individual memory. Second, collective memory. Third, cultural memory. Any theory related to memories and memory studies can be brought under these three categories. First one, individual memory. It is specific to individuals. It is based on the neuromental system. It is based on the intelligence level of the individuals. If someone is born with some defect at mental level, so the memory may not work. For some people, they are very sharp. So their memory is very strong. Of course, in the modern education system, the people who are having strong memory power, they get more marks and they get away with some employment also. So that is a point of some other discussion. So the second one, collective memory. So it happens according to the when the people join and they communicate. So especially when they interact on certain things, this particular memory works. Then the third one is the most important memory. That is the point of discussion in many, many literary pieces. So this is the cultural memory that can be created and preserved by institutions like government, a group, a race, ethnic people, and it can be transmitted to the next generation also. Sometimes it is at this cultural memory level. So people they just try to deviate from the main thing. So just they can distort the truth also. So what is memory on the whole? It is not just the past. It is the past that has the relevance even today. So the memory studies all started with the idea of Carl Gustav Jung. So in 1916, he came out with a beautiful article, The Structure of the Unconscious. Actually, this particular work is the base for the cultural memory in the later part. Then in 1968, so the archetypes of the collective unconscious. So this was published. So actually, it is a collection of some other works by Hume. And in collective unconscious, so he is trying to convey that a person is not alone. So, like no man is an island. So, a person's memory is not individual. If a person thinks in one way, so that is not specific to that individual, that belongs to the forefathers, and that belongs to the community in which that person lives, and the community in which his forefathers lived. So collective unconsciousness. So this collective unconscious has the influence on the present and the everyday activities of the individual. That is the focus of this particular book. So to conclude, so to consolidate that, so this collective unconscious is to shared, inherited, unconscious knowledge and experiences across generations, expressed through universal symbols and archetypes common to all human cultures. So this collective unconscious is common to all people. So that is the point he's trying to drive it. So this collective unconscious can surface in consciousness in the form of dreams, visions, feelings, and are expressed in our culture, art, religion, and symbolic experiences. So one thing is to be noted here. If you just look at a kind of image or a weapon or a kind of dress, so that is the symbolic representation of a particular religion or culture. So especially art carries all these things. For example, if someone comes with turban, we know that person is a Sikh. So how do we know that? Because so that's how such people are living. Then the collective unconscious. So this goes in the words of Jung, is a universal version of the personal unconscious holding mental patterns or memory traces which are shared with other members of the human species. Of course, so people who belong to different religion, different language, so different countries, they also share some traits. So that is called collective unconscious. So it is from this idea that collective unconscious, the new idea racial memory started. So recently, so many critics and theorists are talking about racial memory. So racial memory is the offshoot of this collective unconscious. So we can list six important theorists: Pierre Nora, Maurice Hallworks, Jan Assmann, then Hugh von Hofmannsthal, Abby Warburg, Jan Bansin. So among these six people, the first three people have contributed a lot to memory studies. So first, let me introduce Pierre Noah's history and memory. So at this point, I'd like to raise a question. What is history? So we are made to believe. So history is good. So whatever is found in history book, so that is right. So the first thing new historicism teaches us is history is not objective. It is subjective because history is written by winners. So history is the record of so many memories, positive, negative, good, bad. So it is the compilation of so many memories. Right. So what is the idea of Pierre on history and memory? The first thing, so he's from a French, he's France, and he challenges traditional notions of history as a linear objective narrative. So normally, so for example, if you take Indian freedom struggle, it starts in 1850s, then 1857, Sepoy Mutiny, then so many people, and then afterwards Gandhi comes and other people come. It goes. So this is how it is presented in history books. But so Nora says history is not linear. So conveniently, this history is presented to us. So it is not an objective narrative. The second one, in contemporary societies, the past is not a living organic entity, but a series of constructed representations. In this world, no society is permanent, it is organic. So it is constantly evolving. So, like language, the principles of the society, the cultures of the society. So, everything is not permanent, it is organic, it is constructed, it is reconstructed, destroyed, it surfaces again on its own. So, this is how history and memory works. So, to consolidate Nora's theory, so three important ideas can be remembered. First, the decline of living history. So we may worship the past. For example, we may worship our freedom fighters. So just imagine. So when India got freedom in 1947, so at that time, the sacrifice of the freedom fighters where it was glorified. After 10 years, probably the same spirit was sustained. But now look how it works. So the people who sacrificed their life, so now slowly they are forgotten. Now they are worshipped because by the school students and college students, when it is declared holiday on August 15th, so people remember, then afterwards forget. So the point of Nora is, so there is a decline of living history. The history is past. So we do not have much relevance. This is idea one. Idea two. Then the rise of places of memory. So when the decline of living history happens, that leads to places of memory. So basically, man tries to establish his identity in one form or other. So they create a kind of monument or they write a national anthem and a kind of memoir. So in which they immortalize history. So this history need not be organic. At the same time, the places of memory helps us to remember the past. The next one, so it is the constructed nature of history. So again, so after stating the first 2 points, the third one, Nora wants the people. So in spite of all this history and places of memory, he wants us that so history is not objective, rather it is constructed. So these are the ideas of Nora on history. On the whole, history has memory. At the same time, it is not objective. If you take Morris has introduced one beautiful idea that is collective memory. So, what Jung said was collective unconscious, almost the same idea. Morris came out with a beautiful book in 1925, The Social Framework of Memory, in which he states one particular thing. Individual memory is not completely closed insofar as it is constructed through interactions with others. So, individual memory is constructed through the interactions with others. Individual memory is then influenced by the collective representations of the past. In this sense, there is no individual memory as such. So, Morris goes to the next level. There is no individual memory, he states, because a man is the social animal. He is influenced by his own living environment of the present and his own genetics, that is his own ancestors. So how it is, so a kind of ideas, cultural values are embedded in the minds of people. That is the idea of Morris. Then he talks about familial memory. So this is the way in which an individual constitutes his or her memory in relation with others and through what he calls frameworks. Of course, people are constantly constructing the memory within the framework. So, collective memory defined as such is not well demarcated. That is, collective memory cannot be just separated from individual memory because there is no individual memory and there is only collective memory. Of course, without individual, there cannot be collective people. So, we cannot separate. That is the reason why Morris argues that there is no individual memory. Then he stresses on how religious collective memory works. It is an example only. So actually, each religious people, so from a different religion, so they follow some rituals. They have some unique practices All these things are based on what is taught by the people, the ancestors. So, generation together, they are following that. This is how religious collective memory is constructed. When there is a problem, when it is disturbed in between, then definitely so the dissenters come and the problem starts at that moment. The third important theorist is Jan Asmund, so who is also talking about cultural memory. And he talks about two types of cultural memory. One is communicative memory. Of course, in those days, of course, even today, some memories, some ideas, some beliefs are transmitted orally. So, what will happen in oral history? So, every time, so the person who transmits based on his skill, based on his memory power, then based on the people who listens to that, so it constantly changes. A person may be a very good storyteller. So how that person will add. So that person will improve and improvise an idea and the history and transmit. So this is bound to happen in oral history. The second one is the institutionalized memory. This is more important because the institutions like politics, government, educational institutions, media, they have the power to create a kind of history and they set the narratives. You can see how elections are faced in India across the globe. So they use social media as a strong vehicle to set a narrative. So like this, so institutions create memory, modify memory, then they transmit what do they want. This is how so memory is institutionalized. So when this memory, this idea or the history is transferred to the next generation, what happens? There's something filtered essence or augmented essence or facts are transmitted to the next generation. So the bottom line is this type of institutionalized memory as well as communicative memory cannot be objective. The next one, Hugh Van Holmes. So he's the one who coined the term collective memory in 1902. So he's the harbinger of this theory. So this idea of collective memory, we can say. Then Abbey says he's the one who introduced social memory in the cultural realm, examining how cultural artifacts, particularly images, carry memory across generations. Then the last person in this discussion is Jan Mancina is talking about floating gap. What is floating gap? So normally it is available in oral societies. Like it is divided between informal memory of recent events and formalized cultural memory of the distant past, which shifts with each generation. So the thing is, when one idea is transmitted to the next generation, of course, there will be addition, deletion, modification, enrichment, and depreciation. So that is the idea. So this gap from original to the reality is called floating gap. This floating gap widens forever and it has no end at all. So dear friends, so far I have introduced what is memory, what is memory studies, and who are the important theorists and what are the important theories in memory studies. Now, let me introduce the most important part of this presentation. So, where is memory? Where does that space exist? So, this is the question we have to ask. For example, we all have fond memories about our native place and our school days, especially school days. So whenever we think of a beautiful incident from school days, so we our mind travels to that school place, it wanders there and comes back. So space, our brain or our mind goes to a space. Of course, where does it exist? So in it exists nowhere. It is in the liminal space. So what is liminal space? So that liminal space is the threshold between past and present. So it is an invisible space. So let me explain it with a simple example. So if you enter the library, just you can find thousands of books. We need an entire building so to keep those books, right? Fine, physical space. But in the modern time, so everyone is empowered with lakhs and lakhs of books in a small pen drive. Even the space cloud computing, right? So whatever space available in drives, Google Drive, free space up to 15 GB. And there are places, so we have thousands of books, lakhs and lakhs of books in a particular place. But where does that space exist? That's it is a space without place. So this is how that liminal space works. So to define it, liminality is a state of transmission or ambiguity often associated with rites of passages. It is just constantly evolving. So this can be called as the in-between space. So it is in this space our memories exist. So our memories exist neither fully in the past nor fully in the present. So the entire narrative about partition and memory studies revolves around this particular point. So that is the space of in betweenness. So what is the nature of this liminal space? Ambiguity is there because we cannot distinguish which is past, which is present, because it is in the threshold. Then fluidity, it constantly changes. So from the person from whom that particular idea comes, the who transmits that idea, that changes everything. Then of course we are in the threshold. Then interconnectedness. So the ideas are interconnected. So one memory is connected. Sometimes what happens, so the social engineering, like in elections, when the people, the parties who have media power, they set a narrative and keep telling the people through their advertisements and social media that we have done good things. We are the only saviors. So when repeatedly that people are exposed to that, at one point, people are made to believe that. So that is the point that interconnectedness says. So the thing is, the memory is connected to so many other memories. Then when a present influences that at that time, so that is constantly changing and evolving. Then finally, this liminal spaces resolve emotional resonance. It is a place of emotional resonance, of course. Whenever we celebrate uh, Independence Day, so our patriotic spirit is evoked. Whenever we observe the death of great leader, we feel sad. So it is causing memory causes emotional resonance. So based on the nature of that incident. So now it is very clear where does that liminal space exist? Where is that? Where does that memory space exist? It exists nowhere. Whether it exists or not, yes, it exists. Where does it exist? It exists in liminal space. So, in this connection, we can say childhood memories, dreams, trauma memories. Even one bad incident in a child that can cause traumatic memories and traumatic experiences throughout their life. So, because people, when they are damaged emotionally, this kind of bad things are bound to happen. So, now let me come to the core part of this presentation. So, what is partition narratives? So, partition narratives, we know. So, there is the especially Indian partition narratives, that is my focus. And the narratives that are talking about India's partition and its some activities that happened before independence and certain things that happened after independence. So now the important question is why partition narratives? Why should we talk about that? So because history is very, very important. So the interesting factor is So when India got freedom, so many partition novels came, and partition drama and poems, memoirs came. Fine, absolutely fine. Even in 2021 and 22, partition narratives come. So that means still partition has some relevance. So what is common in these partition narratives? So one common plot line is, so people, whether they lived in Pakistan or India, so they are forced to migrate. So it happens suddenly, unexpectedly, and mostly it is forced. We all know. So all Hindus who lived in Pakistan territories, so they were forced to migrate to India. And the people who lived in the borders of India, the Muslims, they were forced to go to the other side. So this is the common plot line of all partition narratives. So what happens afterwards? Immediately, so they lose their native land. So the land they worshipped, the land on which they invested their entire life on business. So they are gone all of a sudden. Then friends, so they lose their friends. The worst part is, and the other religious friends who were together for 10 years, 30 years, they just overnight they turned enemies. Then some people lost their loved ones. So one by one, when I discuss the novels, so I'll be talking about that. Then it is the sad factor is, so we all praise this friendship. Friendship has no borders beyond everything. So nothing. So when it comes the political partition, when it comes to political partition, so religion separates the people. Then at one point, people are neither unable to hate the native land nor love and embrace the new land. See, they couldn't forget the past, that is for their native land. And at the same time, so when they are told from, see, just imagine somebody comes, the government comes today, okay, you don't belong to this place. Tomorrow onwards, your neighbor's house is your house, and your neighbor will go somewhere. So what will happen? So we cannot accept. So they are in a position of just in betweenness. Then the partition caused great violence. So especially violence against children and women. And the dignity of women is derailed and shattered completely. Then arrest for no reason. So the government, anybody can be arrested, and anybody can be killed in the name of government. Then the most important part is state-sponsored violence was there. So in Pakistan, some Pakistan soldiers and police officials did that. In India, some police officials they did that. So ordinary people they did not have any protection. Then hate speeches where there people incited some people to do something wrong against them. Now earlier I was asking a question that why partition narratives are required. So these are the common themes of partition narratives. But I would like to highlight one thing. All these things happen even today. Last year, Manipur incident was there. There is dignity of women was questioned. The children are killed. So the pregnant women's womb was opened and the children were taken out and burnt. Hate speeches, I need not say anything. State sponsored violence takes place in many places. So the point is, when we revisit partition narratives and internalize all these things, so we can understand what is the reality and that will guide us. So, what is the next step we should have to protect the human race? So, now let me go for the partition narratives. So, one more thing to be taught is the religious tolerance. If a band is divided by religion, so then that cannot be accepted. So, we cannot change the faith of the people, may not be able to. At the same time, we can teach religious tolerance. That is the idea behind this partition narratives. Now, what are the Indian partition narratives? So there are more than 30 novels. So Train to Pakistan, Thamas, Asadi, Clear Light of the Day, Midnight Children, Ice Candy Man, Victory Colony, Tomb of Sand, Pinjore, and the works of Sarat Hasan Anto. He belongs to Pakistan. So here I can list another 10 very easily. Considering the time, let me limit. Among these 10 narratives, let me focus on five narratives and highlight the important aspects of these particular works. So for the first thing, everyone should have studied Train to Pakistan by Khushwant Singh. So that is the masterpiece. It was published in 1956. So that immediately after the partition, right? So the imaginary town is Mano Majra. So we have a beautiful love story in the form of Jagat Singh and Nooran. Jagat Singh, Hindu, right? Sikh, and Nooran, and a Muslim girl. So from Mano up to that incident, up to that partition, both Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs, they live happily as friends. So the intruder comes. So that is partition. So what happens? People start hating each other. There are in all places some people who trying to gain something out of the troubled waters. So what happens? The painful thing that is recorded by almost all the authors in discussion. So when the government arranged trains from India and Pakistan to come to the other side. So except the engine driver, so all Muslims were killed from the train that traveled from Pakistan, and all the Muslims were killed in the train that started from India. So they went to the extent in one of the trains they write gift to Pakistan. So this shows the sadistic attitude of the people. So how they became like this? They became on the grounds of religion. And here, one police inspector speaks like this. So, in page number 21, he speaks, I believe our RSS boys beat up Muslim gangs in all the cities. The Sikhs are not doing their share. They have lost their manliness. Here we are on the border with Muslims living in Sikh villages as if nothing had happened. So, two important things are to be noted from these lines. One is the people who lived amicably with other religious people, they are branded as though they have lost manliness. So a symbol of arrogance comes there. And another thing, so they are criticized for ignoring that partition and ignoring the religious divide. So another point is, as I said in the common threads. So the thing is, this particular line comes from a police officer. Then Kushwant Singh points out one important thing. So criminals are not born; they are made by hunger, want, and injustice. Here, he is just talking about one important thing. The governments create criminals. See, according to this particular line, we can comprehend that. So, when a person is given full freedom to live, enjoy, and follow the rules, when there is living space, that person will not steal. That person will work and live happily. Right? That is the reason why he highlights that. So, criminals are not born, they are made by hunger, want, and injustice. Then there is a character called Iqbal who goes to Bombay, and he just says the people over there in camps, people are dumped, millions of people. Says that the whole country was like an overcrowded room. Suddenly, when millions of people came from Pakistan and people went from India to Pakistan, so there was no space. Literally, the physical space was not available. Then here, one thing in Mano Manjara, one incident happens. Of course, they have come to the point, according under the supervision of the government, people, Muslims will leave from India. So at that time, and one person says like this. So let the Muslims get out, right? Let them get out, but be careful. They do not take too much with them. Hindus from Pakistan were stripped of all their belongings before they were allowed to leave. So the thing is, so the people want to do that tit for that. So there is, so they did that. We also want to do that. So we should do better. So this reflected in violence also. The entire novel, Train to Pakistan, talks about the painful memory of partition. So there was violence, rape of women, and here the beautiful consolidation of this particular novel is Khushwant Singh makes that character Jagat Singh sacrifice his life for the sake of his own lady love Mura and the rest of the people who are on the journey towards Lahore. So the in Manomajra they have the rope tied across the railway line, and Jagat Singh goes there and cuts it. In that process, he is shot and he collapses, but he finishes that. So the thing is love. So finally, what could be the redeeming factor? Love. So that is the point of Kushwant Singh. Second one, Asad. So what is special about Asadi is, and this is the novel that talks about the journey from Pakistan to India, just the opposite. Train to Pakistan is the journey from India to Pakistan, and Asadi talks about the journey from Pakistan to India. So, of course, there is no difference in plot line and there is no difference in violence. There is no difference in the violence against women, children, and state sponsored terrorism. So, this book won a Sahitya Academy Award in 1977. To be very precise, there is a person called Lala Kanshiram from Sialkot near Lahore, and along with his family members, Arun Kumar, son, and Prabharani, wife Madhubala, they just start their journey. And along with him, there are seven families in the place he resides. So they also start their journey first, as usual, in the camp within Pakistan. Afterwards, just 15 miles away from Lahore to that river Ravi. And what happens? They couldn't complete that, so millions of people died. Here, one line to be noted: Arun, the young man, he just talks about this. If the government is unwilling to stop the violence, if unwilling, so the government is a party to the murder. If incapable, we Indians have no right to ask for freedom. So this line is uttered by this gentleman after their party, the entire team comes to India. So the government doesn't stop that. Then he finds fault with the government and he accuses the government as part of the murder. Then, so there at the beginning of the novel, when their group of people talk, if Pakistan is created, we'll have to leave. That is, if the Muslims spare our lives. So the same fear of Muslims in India was there for Hindus in Pakistan during the partition. Now, Noor, the love story between Arun Kumar and Noor. Noor is a Muslim, and both of their families are very close. And the brother of Noor also is very close to Arun Kumar. But what happens during the partition? Noor stays in Pakistan. Arun Kumar has to leave. But at one point, Noor, before the separation, says, "Because I'm a girl and I'm defenseless and cannot force my will on my family, because you are a man more independent than me, and I expect you to defend me and make sacrifices for me." But uh, Arun Kumar does not sacrifice. He is forced to convert to the other religion, but he refuses and he takes the journey towards India. Here, there is a character called Abdul Khan. What happens? Abdul Khani and Lala Kanshiram are very good friends. Lala Kanshiram owns a business. But when the partition and violence takes place, he's waiting. Abdul Khan is literally waiting. When are you leaving? I'm going to take your shop. Finally, the shop is just looted, and Lala Kanshiram has to leave without anything. Then there is a police officer, Rahmatullah Khan. As we found in Train to Pakistan, there is a police superintendent here. He is also doing all the dirty works. Then here, one person resists. Only one person resists. Niranjan Singh. So he resists and he just sacrifices his life. He immolates himself. He just lights the fire and he kills himself. The point is very, very simple. So the people who started from Pakistan, they faced all the difficulties faced by the Muslims in India. By in that novel Asadi, there is 40 women were paraded naked on the street. So here I would like to draw the parallel. See, exactly this is what happened in Manipur also. That is the reason why we have to constantly revisit history. Right. Now, let me move to Ice Candyman. So we have seen what was the plight of Hindus, what was the plight of Muslims. Now we have another unique space for Parsis. So this novel is written by Bapsi Sitwa. So what is the space of Parsis? They are neither Hindus nor Muslims. So what is their space? Here one character says very beautifully like this. This is the opening line. My world is compressed. This is my heaven. So the place where I live is heaven. So that is they are living in Lahore. My refugee from the perplexing unrealities of my home on Waris Road. Waris Road is there in Lahore. So my world is compressed, that Parsi laments. There is a character Aya, she is the one who is taking care of the child, the Parsi character. So now here, there is a person called Barucha, Colonel Barucha. Now, technically, after partition, he becomes the colonel in Barucha in no time. The previous day, he was the colonel of India. The next day, he becomes the colonel of Barucha. Then, in one of the meetings, so he talks to his own fellow people, fellow Parsis. He says like this: "We must treat carefully. We have served the English faithfully and earned their trust. So we have prospered. But we are the smallest minority in India, only 120,000 in the whole world. We have extra vary, or we will be neither here nor there. So, this is the exact position of the Parsis. They can neither be in Pakistan nor in India, but by acceptance, they can do their life, they can lead their life. So, what will happen to people when they get freedom? So, the Barucha says like this: Hindus, Muslims, and anybody will become rulers, but will be jokers. And he says that, and if you jokers jump into the middle, you'll be mangled into chutney. So, this is how he says. Then, another interesting thing is actually, this is the sad plight. So, the so called Hindus in Pakistan had a land named India. And the so-called Muslims in India, they had the land in Pakistan during the partition. But these people, these Parsis, they do not have any space because uh, long back they came from Iran. Then afterwards, they found a space in Bombay. Then they lived in India. Now, if partition takes place, where will they go? Then at that time, very beautifully, that person says, so there is, as long as we do not interfere, we have nothing to fear. As long as we respect the customs of our rulers, we always have, will be all right. So this is the accept. So they just accept the reality and live. And finally, they say, if we must back off, let's go to London. We are the English king's subjects. Then we are English. So this is how. So they have space everywhere in Pakistan, India, England, but literally they do not have any space at all. But one beautiful line that has powerful impact is one man's religion is another man's poison. So at this point, Bapsi Sidwa points out that so if this is true, one man's religion is another man's poison. So if a person fights on the basis of religion, if a man hates someone else on the basis of religion, then definitely that is wrong and unethical. Right. Now let me go for Midnight Children. So I'll not spend much time on Midnight Children because we know that Booker Prize winning novel. And here, so many hate speeches, everything is pointed out. So only one thing I'd like to point out. So Nehru, during that time partition, just he said something like this. This is no time for petty or destructive criticism. No time for ill will. We have to build the noble mansion of free India. So, this is the vision of the first Prime Minister of India. We have to build the noble mansion of free India where all children may dwell. All children refers to children of all faiths. So, all religion and all caste, poor, rich, everyone. But the question to be asked now is, do we have the same freedom of speech? Do we have the same freedom to follow any religion? So, to consolidate the ideas in Midnight Children. So, Rushdie's one passage about memory is so beautiful and that provokes research at different realms. Memory is truth because memory has its own special kind. It selects, eliminates, alters, exaggerates, minimizes, glorifies, and vilifies also. But in the end, it creates its own reality. Memory creates its own reality. So, as the theorist said, right, it is part of cultural and individual memory. It's heterogeneous but usually coherent version of events, and no sane human being ever trusts someone else's version more than his own. The point is, nobody or nobody's narrative can be trusted upon. The individual has to trust his own or her own narrative because the entire history and narrative is something intertwined and they have got their own improvement and some depreciations also. So, Midnight Children talks about the narratives of both India, Indians, and Pakistan, how the people suffer at different levels, mental level, and geographical level, economical level, political levels, how these spaces are encroached by the social institutions like politics, law, and other things. So finally, so let me talk about the recent one, Tomb of Sand, originally published in 2018. Then the translation was published in 2021. So got Booker Prize also, 21-22. That is the thing. So here, this is the novel that talks about a memory of an old man, woman, who is known as Ma. So far we discussed novels like Journey from India to Pakistan, then Parsi space. So there in Midnight Children, it is different. But here, this old woman who came from Pakistan during partition goes back to Pakistan. So her memory is all with Pakistan and her life when she was in there. And the entire novel unfolds incidents after incident. What is the need for going back? So actually, so why she goes back? So that is revealed at the end of the novel. So here we have another two important characters. Beatty is the daughter of Ma. So with whom? So the Ma's age is 70. At the age of 70, she goes to Pakistan with her daughter Beatty, who is in 50s. Then the entire arrangement is made by Rosie. Actually, she's a transgender. So at the end of the novel, it is revealed that when Ma escaped from Pakistan, being a Hindu, so at that time, Ma just brought Rosie. So she's another small girl at that time. So one by one, these secrets are revealed. So this particular novel talks about two journeys. One, Ma's inward journey. So as a old woman, how she travels back within her. Second one, physical journey to her birthplace. That is political and geographical. So here, the point here is, should we really worry about an old woman's inward journey? So the thing is, so here, women are stories in themselves. She herself, at the beginning of the novel, after 70, she becomes numb. She does not talk to anyone. So, because her mind was entirely with the native place. So, this novel talks about the mental space of an old woman. Of course, the old people always feel very bad because they are left alone, and just they need recognition. They want someone to talk. They want someone to share. So that space is not filled by the children, whereas this space was filled by Rosie, and that is the reason why she wants to travel back. So it is said she'll be free. She'll be keep shrinking, growing lighter. Old age normally we say we are growing. No, it is shrinking and growing lighter. Very beautiful thing. Then the problem of Ma is she speaks secretly as if she is talking to someone. So we might have observed this kind of thing in many old people. Then another thing, man worships the idols of himself creates, but not those that God has made. Here, this is the point where the Gitanjali Sri touches upon the important aspect that is religion. See, man worships the idols he himself creates. That is all the creations, gods, temples, and the statues, all things. But we all say that man is the image of God. Man is created by God across the religion. But we hate and kill other fellow humans. So the thing is, we worship what we created, whereas we destroy what is created by God. So this contradiction is something thought provoking. Then the way new plants can grow from a corpse, memory can raise and morbid tail. So like from corpse, so certain things grow like that. From our memory, new things can grow forever. Then winds change its disguise again and again. And it goes like this. There is memory, pain, desire, faith, charisma, beauty, imagination, fragrance, everything. So everything can be changed, including memory. Then here, certain things about old woman and memory comes. If anything lost forever, its value is wiped out. Life exists because there is death, and joy also exists. Joy because there is sorrow. The beautiful idea behind this particular line is, so we are happy because sorrow exists. Life exists because death exists. Without death, there is no value for life. It goes like this. Then I just I'm coming to the end. Here it goes like this. Then finally, Ma's physical journey. It is only one thing I would like to stress, and I will wind up. There is Ma talks about borders. So when she goes to Pakistan border and she's interrogated by the police officers there, then she gives a beautiful talk. What is border? A border, it is something that surrounds the existence. A border, not created to be removed. It is meant to eliminate both sides. A border does not close, but it opens out. A beautiful thing. So border is not border. When love is there, border is shattered. Then to sum up my presentation. So what is the takeaway from this session? So if we read partition narratives for pleasure or to know history or to enjoy or for research, so we have to understand that fact. Partition narratives preserve troubled time. It helps us revisiting the history. And the important aspect of history is, according to Mark Twain, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does. Right? That means history is identical. History teaches us that man learns nothing from history. So Churchill says, those who do not learn history are doomed to repeat it. So these partition narratives so say that. Finally, memory is not an exclusive history in itself. It is the present embedded in the past, and the future that evolves forever. The memory space is not physical, but liminal, and the journey towards that space is everlasting. One who is in a pursuit of realizing that space is like one who is after the mirage shifts its space forever and never to be realized.